She said her parents wouldn't attend the wedding. Less embarrassment, right? Discover the surprise behind their absence. Jenna caught herself staring into the void of the school hallway, each echoing footstep a reminder of her parents' rejection. With less than 3 weeks before her wedding to Maya, the weight of conservative traditions was almost unbearable. Though relief washed over her at the thought of not having them there, an abyss of disappointment opened inside. Was it too much to ask for their love? Days bled into nights as she meticulously organized the event, trying to focus on flowers, invitations, and menus. Yet, each decision was intertwined with the ache of her family's judgment. How could she celebrate a love that was deemed wrong in their eyes? The pain erupted like a silent scream. Her fingers trembled as she selected shades of roses, vibrant colors that seemed to mock her family's monochromatic beliefs. The very act of planning felt like a betrayal and a validation, all steeped in a simmering fear that clawed at her insides. Amidst the chaos, Jenna sat down with Janice, her childhood friend, during lunch at a diner with peeling paint and chipped mugs. It was there that Janice dropped the bombshell. "Did you know your aunt was a famous artist?" she asked, her eyes bright with excitement. Jenna's heart raced with curiosity. "What does that have to do with me?" she shot back, brimming with skepticism. But Janice's next words reverberated like a trailer for a long-forgotten film. "She was celebrated in New York, Jenna. Just like Maya. You should look into it." The phrase "look into it" echoed in her mind. The hope it ignited conflicted with the trepidation that surged alongside. Could there be a connection between her estrangement and the art community she longed to embrace? Would her parents' beliefs shatter at the revelation of an artistic legacy? The tension twisted like a vine around her heart, her thoughts spiraling into a torrent of what-ifs as she imagined the consequences, a family legacy forever tainted unless she brought them into her truth. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she sat with those thoughts, she felt as though she was teetering on the edge of a precipice. Her old art teacher came to mind, the wise woman who had introduced her to the beauty of self-expression. Jenna thought of calling her, seeking guidance, but fear clawed at her throat. What could she even say? "Dear Ms. Thompson, my parents aren't coming to my wedding, and I feel lost." No, that wasn't fair. Each conversation felt inadequate, like a feeble apology for her existence. Days melted into an excruciating silence until she finally sat across from her parents, the air laced with unspoken tension. A confrontation felt inevitable. Failing to bridge the gap between her life choices and their expectations was like laboring under a cloud, the weight suffocating her. Dreading their disappointed eyes and their distasteful words was a fierce battle brewing inside her, and when she spoke, she could hear the shaky tremor of her voice. Right there, on the edge, Jenna faced a decision brewing with resentment and yearning. Would she confront them about their absence or let the rift deepen, knowing she was standing in her truth? With the wedding day looming, the stakes climbed higher. What would she choose, the fierce reality of her love for Maya or the longing for acceptance that could only feel like an echo? The tension snapped with the sharpness of glass breaking, leaving a void filled with uncharted waters as Jenna prepared to make a choice that would resonate for years to come. The sun hung low, casting long shadows as Jenna navigated the stone path toward her old art teacher's studio. Each step resonated with a mix of dread and determination. She clutched her phone tightly, an anchor against the storm of thoughts swirling in her mind. Why was she creeping toward this confrontation? Why now, just 2 weeks before the most important day of her life? Ms. Thompson had always been a luminary in her life, a beacon who illuminated the vibrant facets of creativity that Jenna was now starting to grasp. The teacher was as much a mentor as she was an ally, and Jenna could feel her impending visit carried the weight of confession and revelation. Would Ms. Thompson understand the magnitude of Jenna's internal struggle, the clash between familial loyalty and the overwhelming desire to be true to herself? As she approached the door, Jenna hesitated, recalling the hours spent in these very walls, surrounded by canvases that sang truths too bold for her family to embrace. She knocked, and the familiar voice from within called out, "Come in." Inside, the studio was a symphony of colors and textures. Canvases adorned the walls, each telling untold stories, much like Jenna herself. She took a breath, trying to frame her thoughts while the vibrant energy of the place washed over her. "Jenna. It's so good to see you," Miss Thompson beamed, her gray hair framing her kind face like an artist's brushstroke. But as Jenna met her gaze, she could feel the weight of unspoken words pressing against her consciousness. "Miss Thompson, I need to talk," Jenna stuttered, glancing around the room, forcing herself to focus on the art instead of her insecurities. "Of course. I can see it in your eyes," Miss Thompson replied, gesturing to the comfortable seating area where they had shared countless discussions about technique and expression. "What's on your mind?" Jenna sank into the chair, feeling the familiar blend of excitement and fear. "It's about my wedding, my family. They're not coming, and I feel like I'm in a tug-of-war with my feelings." "Tell me more," Miss Thompson encouraged, her voice soothing like a gentle brush on a canvas. The floodgates opened. Jenna poured out the tangled emotions: the disapproval, the fear of rejection, and the wild flicker of hope that had begun to emerge since Janice's revelation about her aunt. "I found out my aunt was an artist. It's like a part of me that I didn't even know existed. But what if they reject me even more if they knew?" Miss Thompson nodded, absorbing Jenna's words. "You're at a crossroads. You can choose to ignore this legacy and stay quiet, or you can embrace who you are fully. Art isn't just about what you create, it's about expressing who you are at your core." The truth of those words struck Jenna. The fear of her parents' judgment had long kept her from true expression, not just in her art but in her life. But hadn't they already chosen to miss out by rejecting her happiness? Maybe embracing my aunt's legacy could make a difference. "But I'm terrified of what that means for my parents and my wedding," she admitted, her shoulders sinking under the pressure of decisions yet to be made. A keen insight sparkled in Miss Thompson's eyes. "Perhaps it's not solely about your parents. Maybe it's about owning your narrative. Showing them who you are might just be the catalyst for change. You could inspire them to see beyond their own beliefs." Jenna felt a flicker of hope ignite within her, wrestling the shadows of despair away. Could she bridge that gap? As the conversation deepened, the complexity of her emotions untangled slowly but surely. "I want to confront them, but I don't know how to start," she muttered, biting her lip. "That's the first step," Miss Thompson replied. "Acknowledging your fears is powerful. Use them as a foundation, and let your voice carry you forward." In that moment, a surge of determination raced through Jenna. She wasn't just a child seeking approval, she was an artist learning to wield her brush, paint outside of the lines, and carve her path. As she rose to leave, her heart swelled with newfound clarity, ready to face her parents and shatter the silence of their estrangement. But deep down, a haunting question still lingered: would they be willing to embrace the daughter that stood before them, vibrant and unapologetic, or would the rift deepen irrevocably? The answers loomed closer with each ticking day, and Jenna was set on discovering her truth, whatever the consequences. Stepping into the cool evening air, she realized it was finally time to show them who she truly was. How would her words unfold, and would they break the chains of expectation that bound their family tight? A week passed since Jenna's enlightening conversation with Miss Thompson, and each day stretched out like the canvas awaiting her brush. The impending wedding loomed larger, a ticking clock reminding her of the choices she had yet to make. The color palette of her emotions swirled: excitement intermingled with anxiety, hope tainted by fear. With every sunrise, Jenna's conviction to confront her family solidified, but so did the weight of uncertainty. She sat at her kitchen table, half-heartedly stirring her coffee while staring at the wedding plans sprawled out before her. Invitations lined the table, still unaddressed, a tangible reminder of the fracture between her desires and her reality. The elegant typography called for joyful responses, but all Jenna could feel was the chilly specter of absence instead. A headset graced her ears, music attempting to drown out the morass of thoughts, but instead, triggering memories of time spent painting, of messy fingers and tangled brushstrokes. She reached for her phone, scrolling through saved photos of her art, a self-portrait she had created during a turbulent time, a fierce expression staring back at her from the canvas. That version of herself felt distant, yet the fire within that painting ignited a longing for authenticity. In that moment of reflection, Jenna decided it was time to gather her courage. She envisioned the conversation with her parents, the words she would wield, a mix of vulnerability and strength. It was urgent. Each day felt like slipping further into a life lived under someone else's narrative. The craving for both acceptance and self-expression surged within her like a tidal wave, ready to crest. She reached out to Janice, her trusted friend who had nudged Jenna toward acknowledging her artistic lineage. They met at a quiet cafe brimming with creatives, the air thick with the scent of coffee and determination. "I'm planning to speak with my parents this weekend," Jenna revealed, her palms sweaty on the table. "Do you think they'll listen?" Janice pressed gently, the concern evident in her eyes. "I don't know," Jenna admitted, gnawing her lower lip. "But if I don't try, I'll be trapped in this limbo forever. I need them to see me not just the daughter they want but the person I am." Janice nodded supportively. "You're more than a series of expectations. You've discovered something powerful about yourself that deserves to be celebrated. Just remember, it might take time for them to wrap their heads around it." Her friend's encouragement sparked a shift within Jenna. She realized this wasn't merely about acceptance but reclaiming her identity. Each stroke of her brush had been a courageous step toward defining her truth, one that extended beyond art. She owed it to her creativity, to herself, and to the aunt she had never met but felt a deep connection to now. That night, gripped by uncertainty but bolstered by a growing resolve, Jenna set her thoughts onto paper. Each word became a declaration, a manifestation of her feelings toward both her family and her craft. "I am an artist. I am deserving of love that acknowledges who I am. I refuse to be a ghost of my own life." She paused, her heart racing as she felt the weight of what she was about to send echo inside her chest. Sending the email to her parents felt like casting a line into unknown waters. Would they respond with kindness or push her further into silence? The sun peeked through her window the following morning, illuminating her waking thoughts with clarity. Jenna realized that while family conversations were daunting, they were also an opportunity for growth for both her and her parents. By showing them her art, her heart, and her truth, she could pivot the narrative and allow them to witness her metamorphosis. As she prepared for that weekend, Jenna breathed deeply, knowing the moment of honesty was upon her. Would her family embrace her transformed spirit, or would pain ripple through the core of their relationship, demanding further evolution on all sides? The answers awaited just beyond the door, and the air crackled with the promise of change. Jenna's heart thudded in her chest as she stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her hair for what felt like the millionth time. The pastel colors of her outfit were meant to evoke warmth, but all she felt was an impending chill. She could barely recognize the girl staring back at her. Doubt laced her reflection with uncertainty. Today was the day. The day she would confront her parents, armed with not only her brush in the metaphorical sense but the palette of her emotions. The clock ticked loudly in the background, emphasizing the silence. Did she truly owe them this conversation? Amid the wedding plans, joy should have been central, but the specter of dishonesty loomed over like a foreboding storm cloud. If acceptance was a landscape she wished to paint, today would reveal the hues of truth or disappointment. On her way to their house, she rehearsed her words silently. "Mom, Dad, I need to share something with you." Simple and concise. But such simplicity belied the weight they carried. Each syllable felt like a dagger, the fallout exclusive to her and her family alone. Pulling into the driveway, the familiar creak of the old wooden door sent shivers through her. Her mother appeared first, a smile fading as she took in Jenna's gathered composure. "Oh, Jenna. You look lovely," her mom said, genuine warmth woven in her voice, yet Jenna could sense the overshadowing expectation beneath it. "Thanks, Mom," she replied, a lump forming in her throat. Swallowing hard, Jenna mentally huddled her courage, pushing herself forward into the living room where her father sat, focused on the newspaper. He looked up, slightly confused. Hey, Dad, she managed, her voice barely breaking through the thickness of the air hanging between them. Doing okay? He asked, the habitual concern making it clear this wasn't just idle small talk. I'm fine, actually. But there is something important I need to talk about, Jenna said, sounding steadier than she felt. She fidgeted with the edge of her sleeve, waiting for them to catch the significance of her words. Would they perceive the seriousness lapping at her edges? Her parents exchanged wary glances, words ready but unsaid. What's on your mind? Her dad pressed gently, curiosity mingling with the tension. Taking a deep breath, she grasped for her earlier resolve. Customarily, she would divulge her feelings through her art, but today, the canvas would be her own voice. I've been thinking a lot about my life and my dreams about who I really am. I want to share my art with you, she stated, her voice firm despite the frantic pounding of her heart. Art? Her mother echoed, brows furrowed with confusion. Jenna drew in a breath, her palms slightly moist. Yes, art. I want you to understand that being an artist is more than just drawing and painting to me, it's my identity. I've spent years feeling suffocated by the expectations surrounding me. I need your support to embrace this part of myself. The room fell silent, the weight of her disclosure pressing down like summer heat. Jenna's stomach twisted as she noted the unspoken disbelief etching their faces. But Jenna, her dad began, the caution surfaced in his tone, this isn't what we imagined for you. You know how important stability is. The words stabbed deeper, echoing her own fears. Anticipating dismissal, she prepared for a counterattack with her truth, a truth that wasn't formed through rebellion but through necessity. I've realized that stability isn't about following a predetermined path, it's about finding fulfillment in what truly matters to me. If I can't claim my voice now, when will I? You might not understand this, but it's a part of me that has always been there and longed to break free. Their expressions mirrored disarray, but as Jenna gazed into her mother's eyes, she saw flickers of something, perhaps recognition, perhaps hesitance. Before she could catch her breath, her heart surged with a mixture of hope and dread. Was this an awakening moment, or had she just knocked down the fragile bridge they built? Would her parents accept her identity, or would defensiveness build an impenetrable wall? The world around her paused, and for the first time in a long time, Jenna felt the weight of possibility hang in the air. As the rattling silence began to stretch, she realized her journey had by no means reached its destination. The next move was upon her, the future a mosaic of uncertainty. Can you at least try to see me for who I am? She asked, the vulnerability cascading through her voice, revealing more layers than she ever intended to disclose. Jenna knew this was only the beginning, but the real question loomed large. Would she find the strength to continue painting her own life, regardless of the colors they applied? The warmth of the sunlight began to fade outside, shadows lurking in corners of uncertainty. As Jenna waited for their response, she realized change was never a straight line. It twisted and turned like the strokes of her brush, demanding both recognition and resilience. Could she transform this uncomfortable moment into something beautiful? The air between them shifted, taut with the unvoiced words hanging like an unfinished canvas yet to be painted. Jenna's heart raced, her senses heightened, acutely aware of the slightest flicker of her parents' expressions. What had she done? She had peeled back the layers of expectation, exposing the raw and vulnerable truth beneath. Her pride mingled with apprehension, a dissonance she hadn't anticipated. Jenna, her mother finally spoke, her voice a fragile tremor, fighting against the noise of disbelief. You want to what? Leave your career path to follow art? The incredulity in her tone cut deeper than any blade. Jenna took a step closer, feeling almost desperate to bridge the growing chasm between them. It's more than just art, it represents my pursuit of happiness, Mom. Her father sighed, the weight of the world manifesting in the tired lines of his face. We just want what's best for you, Jenna, he said, the familiar concern etching into his brow again. You're so talented in school, and we imagined you doing something stable, perhaps teaching or entering business or marrying a prestigious doctor, her mother interjected, catching herself mid-sentence as if she had revealed a secret better kept hidden. The words hung in the air like an aftertaste of bitterness that Jenna couldn't swallow. It was clear, they weren't seeing her. They were seeing the daughter they hoped to flaunt, not the artist she was fighting to become. The realization crushed down on her chest, a wave of disappointment crashing over her. Mom, Dad, I understand your concerns, but being an artist isn't an irresponsible choice. It's a calling. I can incorporate it into my life in ways that suit me. Have you ever considered how I feel? The frustration boiled beneath her attempts to keep a steady tone. Then how are you going to pay your bills? What about your future? Her father questioned, and the blend of worry and dismissal in his eyes sent a stab of determination through her. She couldn't allow the fears of others to dictate her choices. My future is what I make of it, she asserted, the confidence now flowing through her veins, melting the initial hesitation she had felt. I have plans to take classes and develop a portfolio. Art is my language, and I want to speak it loudly. I am not asking for permission to be an artist, I am asking for support as I pursue what lights me up inside. The silence deepened, her parents' faces painted with a fusion of confusion and concern. It was a dance of emotions she had rehearsed thousands of times in her mind, yet the reality felt more daunting than anticipated. Jenna, you are being so rash, her mother finally said, her voice brittle after the pause. We've invested so much in your education, why would you abandon everything we've worked toward? The accusation ignited a spark inside Jenna, a primal need to defend her pursuit, but instead, the rush of warmth tinged with vulnerability flooded her thoughts. I am not abandoning anything. I'm redefining success on my terms. Do you understand? I might fail, I accept that, but I refuse to live a life driven by someone else's definition of success. Each word propelled Jenna toward emancipation, and the shift in her parents' expressions caught her off guard. Her mother's lips parted as if she wanted to respond, to articulate the unspoken fear that hovered. Maybe we need time to think, her father offered, a softening hint of acceptance glimmering behind the familiarity of his protective demeanor. Before Jenna could respond, the hope that had begun to unfurl in her chest flickered with uncertainty again. I want you to see my passion, my dedication. I guarantee that I will work harder than ever before. All I seek is the room to grow, and a loud knock at the door interrupted them, punctuating the tension in the air. Jenna's heart sank. She hadn't come to discuss her impending wedding, she had intended for this moment to be about self-acceptance and mutual understanding. With apprehension swirling in her thoughts, she turned to see who intruded on this already tumultuous conversation. As the door swung wide, revealing a familiar face from her past, Jenna felt a rush of emotions. Was this the distraction she needed, or did it hold potential for even more upheaval? She stood on the precipice of transformation, poised to embrace a new chapter, yet uncertain if she would leap into the unknown, bracing herself against the currents of familial expectations still edging her toward retreat. After all, her journey had only just begun, and if she dared to confront the new challenges that lay ahead, could self-discovery truly become her masterpiece? Jenna's breath caught in her throat as she recognized the figure standing at the door, Evan, her childhood friend, and perhaps the very person she had thought about distancing herself from. His presence stirred a whirlwind of nostalgia and uncertainty, throwing her already tumultuous emotions into disarray. Jenna! Long time no see! He exclaimed, his voice bright and overflowing with enthusiasm, oblivious to the weight that hung heavily in the room. The genuine warmth in his eyes momentarily pulled her away from the crucible of her current dilemma. Evan, hey, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper, the tension in her chest tightening with each word. What are you doing here? I came by because I heard about your engagement, he said, offering an awkward smile. Wanted to congratulate you. But I didn't expect to walk into, whatever this is. As she turned her gaze back to her parents, she noticed that the tension had shifted. There was confusion, still a palpable blend of shock and curiosity in their expressions. Evan's arrival felt like a lifeline tossed into the sea of doubt that threatened to engulf her. Can we talk? She asked Evan, motioning him to step inside and away from the critical eyes that observed them. The moment they separated from the scrutiny, Jenna felt a flicker of relief. There, in that small bubble of space, stood someone who knew her before the expectations had taken hold. Once inside, she lowered her voice, sharing a truth that had gained momentum over the past few days. I told my parents about my passion for art. They didn't take it well. Evan's brow furrowed in contemplation, and he leaned against the wall, crossing his arms. Wow, that's brave. But why are you letting them define your path? For a moment, Jenna struggled with the conflicting hopes and fears that pulsed through her. I don't want to let them control my decisions anymore, but it's hard when you've been taught to prioritize stability over passion. You've always been a dreamer, Jenna. And honestly, I think it's great you're finally stepping out for yourself. Remember that summer we spent painting by the lake? It's where you came alive. His voice was laced with encouragement, compelling her inner artist to resurface. She closed her eyes, transported back to those moments with paint on her fingers, summer light warming her skin, and the promise of possibility wrapped around her heart. That was her truth, not the version that adhered to family expectations. Right, I remember, she said softly, forcing herself to engage with the vulnerability that slapped against her social conditioning. I want that again, but I worry that I might let everyone down. How do you reconcile ambition with fear? Evan's expression softened, an understanding passing between them as his eyes sparkled with memories. You choose to pursue what sets your soul on fire, even if it feels selfish. Sometimes, the people who care about you have to learn to adapt, and come to terms with the fact that you might not fit into the mold they created. As her heart felt lighter with his words, Jenna caught a glimpse of the shimmering brush of her future, a life that lay beyond the rigid boundaries set by her parents. But doubts crept in alongside her imagination. She would have to face her mother and father again soon. Just as she voiced her lingering fears about their acceptance, her father called from the other room, Jenna, we need to discuss this further. The call echoed in her mind, a ripple of anxiety dancing with the embers of determination. She glanced at Evan, seeking reassurance. What if I lose them forever? Maybe this is your time to draw the lines, Evan replied, and there was something vibrant in his confidence that ignited something dormant within her. Turning your back on old ambitions doesn't mean you'll be alone. It means standing firm in who you truly are. And remember, every artist must bear the risk of being misunderstood. Taking a deep breath, Jenna felt her resolve harden. Maybe I need to show them what I can build, not just the abstract ideals they see. Evan nodded, a warmth blooming in his demeanor. Then let us work on that portfolio together. We won't let anyone misunderstand your passion for art, not anymore. As time slipped through her fingers and the call grew louder, Jenna faced the daunting task ahead. The remnants of her childhood dreams began to weave themselves anew with purpose and ambition. But as she turned back toward the uncertain future, Jenna felt a new flicker of courage ignite within her. In that moment, she understood every choice was a brushstroke on the canvas of her life, and the ultimate masterpiece awaited. Yet, as she stepped toward the unknown discussion with her parents, one question lingered in her mind. Would their love stretch enough to embrace the artist she yearned to become, or would it inevitably pull them apart? The moment Jenna stepped into the living room where her parents waited, the weight of their expectations bared down on her with a ferocity that was nearly unbearable. The tension hovered like a storm cloud, threatening to unleash at any moment. Her father, arms crossed and jaw tense, surveyed her with a mixture of disappointment and disbelief, while her mother wore 1,000 questions on her expression, each unvoiced but palpable. Jenna, we need to talk about this art thing, her father began, his tone authoritative, shielding any hint of warmth. About your future, Jenna, her mother interjected, teeth clenched around the words like she was biting into an unwelcome reality. It's not practical. You've always been so sensible. In that moment, Jenna felt the trembling resolve she had built with Evan begin to waver. A deep-rooted fear slithered into her thoughts, telling her that once again she would be the daughter who failed to meet expectations. But recalling Evan's words tightened her spine. This was her chance to redefine not just her identity but her relationships as well. I understand you're concerned, Jenna stated, her voice rising just enough to be heard over the apprehensive silence. But this is my life. I need to pursue what makes me happy, even if it scares you. Her father shifted uncomfortably, irritation evident in the slight flare of his nostrils. You think painting will pay the bills? You are engaged to a wonderful man with a solid job, and you want to throw everything away for what? A whim? It stung, the implication that her passion was trivialized as a mere fancy. She locked eyes with her father, summoning every ounce of bravery. It's not a whim, Dad. Art is not just a hobby for me, it's part of who I am. I don't want to lead a life that feels inauthentic. Not anymore. Her parents exchanged glances filled with a mix of alarm and regret, the conversation shifting to an arena she wasn't prepared for. The suffocating silence lingered again as Jenna realized she had to take this further. If I don't follow my passion now, I will forever question what could have been. The only thing worse than failing is never trying at all. You're being naive, her mother finally spoke, the disappointment spilling into her words. Life is about responsibility. You're about to be married, you should be focusing on building a family. Each word was a blow, and the small hope Jenna had nurtured began to feel delicate, almost fragile. That's exactly it. I want to build a family where creativity and passion thrive, where my children will know it's okay to follow their dreams. Can't you understand that? The air began to thicken as Jenna's father pounded his fist lightly against the table, frustration bubbling over. You have the chance at a stable future, Jenna. You could have everything you've dreamed of. Why risk it for uncertainty? But uncertainty, Jenna realized, was part of life's beauty. She inhaled deeply, letting the silence carry her heartbeat for a moment. Because I want to be authentic not just for myself but for you, too. I need to show you that a life built on dreams is not a life wasted. There it was, her truth laid bare. She watched her mother's face fall, the defiance slowly draining away. For the first time, Jenna felt as if the ground beneath her shifted in her favor. The conversation hung suspended, a critical juncture neither of them could ignore. Maybe her father started, hesitating. Maybe we need to see this for ourselves. Jenna's heart raced. Hope dared to illuminate the shadows of doubt. You'd come to see my work? With a level of sincerity she had yet to witness, her father nodded. If this is truly what you want, we'll entertain the idea. Jenna felt a surge of warmth filling the space left by their rejection. It wasn't outright approval, but it set a foundation, a crack in the rigid mold they had built for her. Yet, even as she grasped their fragile commitment, her pulse quickened with anxiety about what lay ahead. She had ignited a conversation, but what other fires might burn out of control from this point forward? As they formulated plans to attend her upcoming art showcase, Jenna couldn't shake the thought of the myriad ways a shift in their viewpoint might unravel. What if their attendance only deepened the divides both within her family and inside herself? This was just the beginning of a new chapter, and uncertainties loomed like shadows in the corners of her mind. With her heart still racing from the confrontation, one undeniable realization bubbled up: she still had to confront her own fears before her dreams could take flight. The time had come to face not just her parents and their perspectives, but to delve deeper into her own motivations and the artist buried under layers of obligation. Would she uncover her true strength in embracing vulnerability, or would the overwhelming pressure to conform extinguish the fire she just kindled? As the days folded into one another, Jenna wrestled with an escalating storm of anticipation and doubt. The reality of her parents' hesitant approval was a bittersweet pill to swallow. She didn't just want them to observe her art, she craved their genuine recognition of her journey as an artist. With each brushstroke on the canvas, she sought to confront not only her fears but also the expectations that had tethered her for so long. The upcoming showcase loomed ahead, a milestone that could shatter old perceptions or reinforce them. Jenna immersed herself in her paintings, each piece a dialogue between her soul and the canvas, an exploration of colors and emotions that spoke to the authenticity she yearned to embody. Gone were the fear-laden strokes from winters past, now, they were bold and unapologetic. She channeled her frustration into every detail, each color choice becoming a deliberate defiance against the confines of practicality her parents represented. Yet, even amidst this creative fervor, Jenna was plagued with second-guessing. She asked herself if she was merely dressing up an artistic impulse in a shroud of determination. What if, beneath her bravado, lay the same apprehensive girl who was afraid of disappointing her parents? Arguments flitted through her mind like shadows, taunting her with the prospect of failure, the negative feedback, the confused stares, and the inevitable "I told you so" from her mother. Seeking clarity, Jenna arranged to meet with Evan at their favorite cafe, a small sanctuary amidst the chaos. As she stirred her coffee, she caught sight of his familiar smile, a beacon of unwavering support. "You're looking pensive," he remarked, leaning back against the seat. "Am I that transparent?" she asked, letting out a soft laugh to mask her anxiety. "Just a little," he replied, his eyes narrowing with gentle concern. "What's on your mind?" As she poured her heart out, Jenna found strength in his unwavering belief in her talent. "What if my parents come to the showcase, and it all backfires? What if they hate what I create?" The words spilled from her lips as if they were freeing themselves from a long-standing prison of worry. Evan reached for her hand, grounding her spiraling thoughts. "You're creating art for yourself, Jenna. This isn't about impressing anyone else. If they don't recognize your journey, that's on them, not you. You need to focus on what you've accomplished, not just their approval." His words resonated, igniting a flicker of hope she almost buried. But deep down, doubts still surfaced like dark clouds blotting out the sun. What would the real cost of this journey be? The courage to express herself might come at the price of familial discord. Later that evening, Jenna returned home with a sense of urgency. Sitting on her bed surrounded by half-finished canvases, she began sketching an idea that had been quietly simmering in her mind, a piece that depicted the delicate balance between personal dreams and familial expectations. It reflected her struggle but also the resilience she was discovering. Art became her outlet, her means of signaling to her parents that she was serious about this transformation. The night deepened, shadows curling along her walls, reflecting her inner turmoil. After final touches, she stepped back to admire her work. It was raw and vulnerable, everything she felt yet feared to confront directly. Perhaps this piece could serve as both a bridge and a barrier, a way to communicate what she couldn't articulate in words. As she prepared for sleep, exhaustion washed over her. An unsettling sense of dread, however, crept in with the darkness. What if she wasn't enough? What if the showcase turned into a battleground rather than a celebration? The day finally arrived, overcast skies echoing the undertow of her emotions. Her heart raced as she stood at the entrance, anticipation pulsating through her veins. Would her art transcend her family's expectations, or would it merely reinforce the barriers built between them? Jenna inhaled deeply, allowing the chaotic whirl of thoughts and fears to crystallize into one resolute truth. The moment of truth had arrived, but could she summon the courage to embrace both her art and her truth before the ultimate test unraveled? Would she stand in tears or triumph? With her heart pounding, she stepped into the gallery, the fate of her relationships and aspirations hanging in the air like an unfinished masterpiece. With the gallery doors swinging closed behind her, Jenna was struck by an overwhelming cascade of scents and sounds. The air was thick with the smell of acrylic paint and fresh linen, mingling with hushed conversations. Each whisper felt like a starched piece of fabric, tightly wound and restricted. She squeezed the edges of her portfolio, its weight anchoring her resolve. Her first move was to take in the space, walls adorned with vibrant canvases reflecting the myriad emotions that pulsed through her. Each painting, she realized, told a story not just of the artist, but of the oppositions she faced, the conversations left unsaid. But where were her parents? Anxiety gnawed at her, tangling up her stomach like an unyielding vine. Would they walk through those doors? Should she even expect them? The gallery echoed with laughter and robust discussions, but the laughter felt prioritizingly distant. She meandered toward her own creations, scrutinizing them as if trying to decipher a secret code. Each piece connected back to a piece of her life, a page from her journey. Yet, there hovered a dark shadow just over her shoulder, the nagging thought that even this moment might not be enough to earn her parents' acceptance. Evan arrived 10 minutes later, his presence like a breath of fresh air. He gleamed with enthusiasm as he held out a small bouquet of wildflowers, a symbol of spontaneous beauty amid the carefully controlled arrangements in the gallery. "For you," he said, his voice firm but soft, an anchor securing her to the present. "You didn't have to," Jenna murmured, grateful yet anxious. "What if?" "Forget the what-ifs," he interjected, his eyes shimmering with unwavering confidence. Tonight's about you. Whatever happens next, you've poured your heart into this. They'd be foolish not to. Before he could finish, Jenna felt a brush of blood rush to her cheeks. Would they even appreciate the depth of her commitment, or would they merely glance and judge? As the showcase began, attendees gathered around, and Jenna stepped aside, trying to forecast the reactions her art would stir. She overheard snippets of conversation, art critiques layered with admiration or disdain. As she approached a punchy, chaotic piece depicting familial tensions, a couple nearby marveled at its boldness, commenting on its raw emotionality. That was the spark she craved. The adults discussed their interpretations endlessly, weaving meanings through the vibrant imagery she had created. Yet still, a small piece of her longed for a specific validation, one that was still missing. She shifted her attention toward the door one last time, anticipating figures she had desperately hoped to see walk through. Finally, her parents arrived tentatively, almost as if they were stepping into a realm they hadn't anticipated. The freeze in her body surged into a swell of hope mixed with trepidation. Her mother's brows knit together in disbelief as they witnessed Jenna's pieces, their vibrant colors striking like lightning against the grayness of familial expectation. As she almost stumbled over to greet them, a wave of words rushed forth like an erupting volcano. "What do you think?" she asked, their acknowledgement the thing she had wanted most since childhood. She fought against the urge to retreat into herself, her eyes pleading for some sign of recognition. Her mother's expression softened, but it lacked the warmth Jenna longed for. "It's unexpected," she replied, scanning the canvas. The word latched onto Jenna like a weight she couldn't shake off. She felt the walls of her courage wobble ever so slightly. Unexpected? Her heart fluttered with dread. In what way? Her mother hesitated, the silence stretching painfully. Unspoken words loomed between them, thick and heavy, testing the very foundation of their relationship. Did every layer of her art draw her closer to understanding or push them further apart? The faint laughter and chatter of visitors faded away as the tension wrapped around them. Jenna's heartbeat quickened, propelling her to the edge of a precipice. Sharing this artistic piece was only the first step. Could she bear to plunge deeper into her truths, regardless of their reception? She gulped, bracing herself for a response that could very well redefine their family dynamic. And as the moment stretched into a fragile silence, she felt it settle upon her, a crossroads where acceptance could either blossom or wither. What she feared most began to pulse in her mind. Would her parents' acceptance aid in the unveiling of her ambitions, or would their unspoken disapproval tether her back into the shadows of self-doubt? The answer loomed, teetering precariously poised like a brush over canvas, as she prepared to confront the raw essence of her journey. Would she harness this moment to artfully express the truths she had buried deep within, or would the currents of familial obligations pull her back into the depths of doubt? The time had come to face them, and her own emerging identity, head-on. As the atmosphere thickened with unspoken words, Jenna recentered herself, drawing in a deep breath that fed her resolve. Here was her moment, the culmination of countless conversations with herself, mixed with anxiety and hope. She wasn't just an artist presenting her work, she was a daughter laying bare her truth. "Mom, Dad," she began, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside. "This isn't just paint on canvas. This is my story, my struggle to express who I am. Each piece represents not just my passion for art, but my fight for acceptance, both with you and within myself." Her parents looked at each other, a silent dialogue passing between them. Jenna felt the weight of their gazes, the pressure of their expectations manifesting as palpable tension in the gallery air. They were no longer just spectators, they were part of the narrative, and she needed them to comprehend it fully. "Unexpected can be beautiful," she pressed on, stepping forward. "I've spent years trying to mold myself into what you envisioned, a life defined by security and stability. But I've realized that pursuing my true calling, even if it means going against the grain, is what truly defines fulfillment." Time seemed suspended as Jenna spoke, her feelings pouring out like a heavy paintbrush against the canvas. She shared her journey, her fears of failing to gain their acceptance, but also the fierce joy she felt when creating. There was power in her truth, she could feel it swelling inside. The expressions on her parents' faces began to soften, puzzlement giving way to contemplation. "I just don't want you to struggle," her father finally managed, his voice layered with concern and affection. "We thought we were helping you secure a future." "I know," Jenna replied, feeling a fresh surge of empathy. "But what good is a future if it isn't one of my own making? Every artist takes a risk. It's my legacy to embrace this journey wholeheartedly." Her mother opened her mouth, then hesitated, glancing back at the paintings around them. "These are powerful, Jenna," she conceded quietly, gesturing to a piece that encapsulated her internal struggle, a swirling vortex of color and emotion. "And you don't have to agree with every choice I make," Jenna added, the adrenaline of vulnerability surging through her. "But allowing me the space to be who I truly am could strengthen our family. It could show us all that love isn't solely about conforming to expectations." In that moment, Jenna glimpsed a flicker of realization cross her mother's features, an acknowledgement of the daughter she had chosen to champion. "Maybe we have to learn to see you through a new lens," her father spoke, the tentative hope rippling beneath his words. Jenna felt her heart lift, a small victory unfolding before her. She didn't need radical acceptance in that moment, she needed a seed planted for growth. "That's all I ask for, to create together not just art, but our family's narrative." In the silence that followed, Jenna's artwork felt alive around her, each piece echoing her journey of self-discovery and resilience. The tension that had once burdened her lifted, creating space for possibilities. Here stood the artist she had fought to become. As the night progressed and laughter filled the gallery space, Jenna reveled in small gestures from her parents' soft smiles, hesitant conversations about upcoming projects, and even tentative questions about her artistic process. They didn't have to understand yet, but they were witnessing her transformation, one step at a time. A sense of accomplishment warmed her inside. This exhibition represented much more than art, it was the manifestation of her growth, a bridge promising greater understanding. Jenna felt the budding confidence in her heart. She had conquered her fears, confronted her parents, and emerged intact, poised on the precipice of her true journey. Each painting, each moment shared, encapsulated the unbreakable truth she had finally accepted: she would no longer shy away from her identity. With her parents beginning to grasp that her passion did not diminish their love but rather became part of the greater tapestry of it, Jenna felt a new beginning unfurling before her. The night ended on a hopeful note, filled with laughter and a shared commitment to understanding, revealing that change, though nuanced, can bloom unexpectedly. As she stepped out of the gallery, the world around her felt vibrant. Her canvas was forever changing, and in that, so was her family. Embracing the dawn of possibilities felt liberating, and as she walked into the night, Jenna marveled at the journey ahead, no longer solely an artist wrestling with acceptance, but a daughter reclaiming her narrative. The canvas of her life awaited, and she was more than ready for every bold stroke it demanded. Now, in this vital moment of transformation, it's time to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. I want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.